Now we are gonna move to team number one. Their topic is kin-based gender violence and cultural offense / defense. So we can start the first team member who's gonna present it, Miss Ecem Doğru. So Miss Ecem, you can start your presentation, and thank you. And also you have 5 minutes, and I will warn you if you pass that time. So please be careful with the time.
Thank you. Good morning. Ecem Doğru. I graduated from Istanbul University, and I am PhD student in Bahçeşehir University in Istanbul. I would like to thank everyone who contributed to my participation in the school. Especially, I would like to express my endless gratitude to Professor Adem Sözer. Now, kin-based gender violence can manifest itself in different ways. In my presentation, I will try to explain the issues of forced marriage, honor killing, and female genital mutilation within the framework of the Istanbul Convention. These issues are the appearance forms of gender violence arising from the cultural structure of the society. Article 33 of the Convention, can you change please, next slide? Article 33 of the Convention criminalizes physiological violence, which is defined as behavior that seriously harms the physiological integrity of a person through coercion or threats. In this context, physiological abuse is considered to be a common form of domestic violence that may be perceived by victims as more severe and harmful than physical violence. Although physiological violence is recognized in Law No. 6284, it has not been recognized as a crime in the Turkish Penal Code. Physiological violence is handled within the scope of other crimes in judicial practice. In the Turkish Penal Code, unilateral stalking, can you change please? Unilateral stalking is not a crime. For this reason, prosecution due to continuous unilateral follow-up is evaluated within the scope of other crimes such as torture, sexual harassment, and threats. What is sought to be protected by Article 37 of the Convention is the right of women to marry of their own free will and to freely choose a spouse. Forced marriage is not defined as a specific crime in the TPC. Instead, it appears that the criminal act referred to in Article 37 of the Convention is dealt with within other provisions such as deprivation of liberty, human trafficking, and sexual assault. In addition, it is known that preparations for the preparation of Turkey's first national action plan for combating early and forced marriage, covering the period 2018-2023, continue. There is no provision in the TPC that criminalizes female genital mutilation. However, the behavior specified in Article 38, subparagraph A of the Convention can be prosecuted under Articles 86 and 87 of the TPC, respectively, with regard to intentional injury and the aggravated form of this offense due to the permanent weakening or loss of the victim's senses or organs, or the loss of reproductive ability. According to Article 42 of the Istanbul Convention, it is not permissible for the states parties to defend that they punish the victim based on the suspicion or perception that the victim is violating cultural, religious, social, or traditional norms in their criminal and criminal procedural systems. The basis of this provision is to prevent the victim blaming attitude. Grevio strongly encouraged the Turkish authorities to fill in the gaps in their criminal legislation in order to fully comply with the requirements of Article 46 of the Convention on Aggravating Circumstances. In the crime of homicide with the motive of custom, which is regulated in the TPC, the motive is to fulfill the requirements of the customs and to get rid of the pressure of the society. The goal the perpetrator wants to achieve is to kill the victim. Other benefits that he wants to provide besides killing are to clean his honor and to be able to go out into society. On the other hand, the Supreme Court defends the idea that the murders committed with the motive of honor or are the product of a collective decision. On the other hand, it claims that the moral motive can also be found in the cases where the victim was killed in a planned manner without a collective decision. As it is known, women's rights are a human right. The Istanbul Convention is a necessary and indispensable tool for combating all forms of violence against women. For this reason, states should fulfill their obligations to end gender violence by making arrangements in accordance with the Istanbul Convention. I would like to thank you for your attention and have a nice day. I give you the floor to the Bilge.
Thank you, Ecem. I will start my presentation. Just a minute. Next slide, please, Alma. Honor killings are one of the most widespread form of cultural offense against women in Turkey, and violence is generally a frequently used tool to keep women in line. And honor killings are the farthest point in this attempt to protect the status quo. The killing of the woman who transgresses the rules of patriarchal society also gives a message to all women in that society. In this manner, honor killings and hate crimes are really similar, because they are both used for terrifying a whole group of people. In our case, that group is all women who dare to cross the conventional notion of honor. Next slide, please. And next slide, sorry. One of the legal reflections of this phenomenon was Article 462 of the Old Turkish Criminal Code. This article ensured lesser jail time to those who caught their partners or family members having sexual intercourse and killed them or their partners. This article was widely accused of discriminating and violating women's human rights and then later abolished. The initiation to abolish Article 462 made by Judge Ali Güzel of 2nd Criminal Court of the Bakırköy District in Istanbul stated the following summary in the Statement of Reasons. Next, the right to life and to preserve and develop one's material and mental existence are basic rights which are not touchable, resolvable, or renounceable. This article arising from the claim of an individual to possession or domination over another individual who is leading her life based on her own free will and own choices, especially if she has reached the age of discretion and can distinguish between right and wrong, his egoism of not allowing her to love someone else, and the idea of cleansing the honor have nothing in conformity with the general principles of law. This explains why this article was so at odds with the Istanbul Convention and the general human rights of women. But the Turkish Constitutional Court rejected the application and said the article didn't constitute a violation of equality principle. But later, the law was abolished anyways. Next, please. Turkish Criminal Code prohibits aggravated homicide, which includes killing in the name of custom. Labeling aggravated homicide as a crime of custom, however, created a loophole for honor killings. Offenders may argue that crimes of custom or tradition are restricted to certain areas or perpetrated only by certain groups or only to a specific type of honor killing, such as family assembly wordings, thus excluding other honor killings from this definition. The family assembly verdict approach was highly criticized for being too vague and therefore constituting a breach of the no punishment without law principle. The Turkish Court of Cassation has so interpreted this provision by ruling that the applicable article applied only to custom killings, whereas the case at the hand was an honor killing because it did not involve a formal family decision. Furthermore, the term custom fails to acknowledge the prevalent discrimination against women that motivates killing in the name of honor. Also, usage of the word custom or töre is criticized because the word is generally associated with the Kurdish people and their traditions. And even though honor killings are abundant in Turkish families as well, using the word custom instead of honor gives a wrong impression. Since January 2009, however, the Turkish Criminal Supreme Court has found that a formal family decision is no longer required for the offense to constitute a custom killing. Nevertheless, the term custom fails to acknowledge the prevalent discrimination against women that motivates killing in the name of honor and is ambiguous. Since January 2009, however, the Turkish Court of, in its recent decisions, court started a different approach that can be summarized as customary killings are just honor killings that cannot benefit from the unjust provocation clause, which is created a debate in on itself. Next one. Next one. Sorry, Alma. According to the Turkish Court of Cassation, the murder must be committed by a family member, but the term family member is interpreted in a way to include extended family members as well. In some cases, being from the same province in Turkey was deemed enough to fall under this crime type between the perpetrator and the victim. Because of aggravating circumstances and the extended jail time, families tend to use minors in this type of murders, or they convince women to kill themselves or force them to suicide. Now, Sabiha will talk about the forced suicides of women. Thank you.
Thank you, Bilge. Hi, my name is Sabiha Göksu Tezer. I am a senior LLB student in Istanbul University. Currently, I'm trying to graduate. And let me start. When a woman rejects to get married, she faces oppression and pressure more than usual. And we see honor killings happening because women refuse to marry as their families wish, and they try to run away, seek help, and get a new life. But sometimes the families don't do the act of killing because the victim has already committed suicide by herself. But if she really decides by herself, we have a lot of dark figures here. Only data we have are on honor killings and suicide rates. But we don't have enough data on the rate of suicides caused by mostly psychological abuse by the family members and the relatives with the intention of honor. Next slide, please. When we look at the news, it is easy to understand the facts, but the lack of evidence is making it hard to turn these deaths into data under the umbrella of honor killings. Next slide, please. Sometimes the victim kills herself because they get refused by their families, their parents. As an example, a woman tried to actually committed to suicide by jumping off a bridge because her family refused to get in connect with her after she ran away. Next slide, please. And sometimes their parents threaten them into hurting or killing them, which sometimes shows death as an only option. For example, a mother told her daughter that we should take you to a mountain and kill you there when she refused to get married. Next slide, please. Sometimes there's already a violence, a domestic violence happening in the household. For example, a woman killed herself because her brothers tortured her because she refused to get married. Next slide, please. Sometimes women change their minds and get married because of the pressure. But next slide, please. But then during their marriage, the marriage can end in suicide because of the pressure of getting married to someone they don't want to get married with. Next slide, please. And sometimes the family really shows that death is an only option against marriage. And as an example of this, actually, there was a girl who got threatened by her family, but she was brave enough to go to police. But unfortunately, we lost so many women in those situations. And we have a lot of examples for that. Next slide, please. In most cases, we do not know the motivation behind the suicides, but the background depends on the forced marriages in the first place. Between 2003 and 2016, 6,502 bright children chose death. And this is only the race of bright children are not like older than 16. So we have a lot of dark figures in there. Next slide, please. As far as I've seen, we should have a deeper research about those suicides and the motives of them to be able to categorize and penalize them, the offenders, the families, the ones who directed those poor women and sometimes men into suicide. Thank you for listening. I yield the floor to my colleague, Alma Zevlan.
Thank you so much. I will now switch the slides and I'm going to tell you something more about my subject. So my name is Alma Javlan and I'm a final year student at University of Sarajevo, Faculty of Law. So my subject is forced marriage in Bosnia and Herzegovina. First of all, I want to say that according to a research done by UNICEF, for American State Department, 6% of females in Bosnia and Herzegovina, mostly minors, got married this way. This data shows that most cases of forced marriage in Bosnia are happening in Roma minority communities. I would also like to add that the authorities in Bosnia and Herzegovina do not have any programs that are specifically aimed at reducing contracted marriages. We, of course, have criminal and other legislation that applied in Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina. So at the left side, we have the Criminal Code of Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, plus Family Law of Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina. So what are they saying? The Criminal Code of Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina specifies criminal offenses, including elements of forced marriage bigamy in Article 214, marriage convenience in contracting an illicit marriage in Article 215, and a common law marriage with a younger minor, Article 216. When it comes to family law of Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, we have an article number 16, and this article says that a marriage is not valid if the spouse considers it because of fear caused by a serious threat. And what is that actually? What does that mean? That means that if marriage is consented because of a threat, it should not be valid by a family law Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina. As mentioned, this problem is directly connected to ethnic group of the Roma. And this is a problem because it's painting a beautiful culture in the wrong way. So what do we think about that? Of course, there are child and arranged marriages in Roma community, but that is not a custom and tradition of this community. At the same time, Roma men and women have a far more beautiful and distinctive community that should not be looked in this way. The position of a woman in this community is especially difficult due to a number of specific factors, as a lack of education and opportunities for employment and social engagement. Also believe that she's less valuable because she's a woman and she's exposed to like trying to get married to relieve her parents of the burden and feel as a useful member of it. So example cases, we have a 13-year-old girl in Doboj, Bosnia and Herzegovina, 12-year-old girl in Bijeljina. So one of the notable cases of gross violation of children's rights occurred in Bijeljina, where a 12-year-old girl was married and taken abroad with the monetary gain for her parents. Another similar case is currently pending in the courts of Bosnia and Herzegovina, where a case is being conducted against the father-in-law and husband of the 13-year-old girl at municipal court in Doboj. The shocking thing is the statement of their lawyer, who believes that there are no elements of criminal offense in this case because it is a customary Roma right. In addition, the mentioned lawyer considers arranged and Roma be a tradition and a completely normal and common occurrence in Roma communities. Also, he said that Roma women who are 18 years old or more are already considered old for a marriage in this community. However, fortunately, the legal regulation of Bosnia and Herzegovina do not support these cases. We also have cases where girls are sold into marriages for like 400 euros, for example, and they are taken abroad to be taken care of by another family. And in this way, the family, their father, for example, have some financial aid from the marriage. So what are the solutions in this case, in the case of Bosnia and Herzegovina? Number one is definitely media exposure. We should talk more about this subject. In the media of Bosnia and Herzegovina, this is not a very popular subject and it's still a taboo. We do not talk about it, and it happens a lot, mostly in smaller communities, smaller places, not in the big like cities. Education is a key as well. So everyone should be able to have a freedom of will. That is an, of course, normal thing. Everyone should be able to express what they want, and everyone should be able to say no if they don't want to get, for example, married. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, you can get married if you're a minor, but you have to be at least 16 years old. And more detailed data and concrete problem solving. So what do I think about this? Jail sentences in Bosnia and Herzegovina go from 3 months of jail time up to 6 years of jail time for those responsible for these cases of forced marriage. So I think these numbers are really small. I think the most cases of the forced marriage in Bosnia and Herzegovina are minors and children that is like less than 16 years old. So we should definitely have a bigger and harder sentences for those who are responsible. So thank you so much for listening to me. My next colleague is Melek, and I'm going to give her a word. Thank you.
Thank you, Alma. My name is Melek Ünlüyol, and I'm studying at the University of Zurich for my master's degree. And I will present to you forced marriages in Switzerland and Germany. And I'm going to start with the country of Switzerland and then give you a brief description of the situation in Germany. Next slide, please. The number of forced marriages has increased significantly in Switzerland. Most of the women are under 18 and originally from countries like Turkey, Sri Lanka, Syria, and Afghanistan. Forced marriage and especially child marriage is a current problem in Switzerland as well, because cultural uses are brought into the country through immigration. Next slide, please. There are different reasons and motives for forced marriage in Switzerland. The main intention is the control of unwanted behavior and sexuality and the prevention of unsuitable relationships with people outside their cultural or religious group. Furthermore, to ensure wealth in the family, but also for residence and citizenship. Next slide, please. In 2012, the Swiss Parliament passed a series of criminal and civil measures. The jail sentence has increased to a maximum of 5 years for people found guilty of forcing into marriage according to Article 181A of the Swiss Criminal Code. And this applies regardless of whether the marriage was agreed outside Switzerland. Next slide, please. The minimum age for marriage in Switzerland is 18. And marriages involving minors must be annulled according to Article 105, paragraph 6 of the Swiss Civil Code. However, exceptions are permitted if it seems to be in the child's best interest. So if a 16-year-old girl is already married upon arrival in Switzerland, the marriage can be recognized, for example, when the girl is pregnant. This exemption is being criticized a lot, but once such a marriage is annulled, it can be declared as invalid. And in addition, registers must refuse to officiate when they come across forced marriages and must report suspects to the justice authorities. Next slide, please. So until today, there were 3 court cases of forced marriages and 2 of honor killings in Switzerland, but there is a dark figure, very high, of NGOs reporting about over 300 reports per year. Next slide, please. Now to Germany. Forced marriage in Germany is explicitly considered a criminal offense in Article 237 of the German Criminal Code, and is penalized with imprisonment from 6 months to 5 years. Next slide, please. Forced marriages abroad are also punishable offense. This means that independent from the legislation in the country, in the foreign country, the German justice system can prosecute these cases as well. Next slide, please. To protect a particularly vulnerable group of minors, the Bundestag passed a law to fight child marriages, which entered into force 2017. The legal age for marriage is 18 now, and without exceptions, this applies both to German citizens and foreign nationals. The new law prohibits any marriage or engagement of minors, even in traditional or religious ceremonies. So nearly all of the victims have a migration background, and most of them are born in Germany with 32% and Turkey with 23%. The predominant origin of the parents' generation is Turkey with 44%. Next slide, please. Between 1996 and 2005, there were 78 honor killings cases were registered. And the most important case, which I want to mention, was the case of Hatun Sürücü, a Turkish Kurdish woman originally from Erzurum, who was killed by her brother for not staying in a forced marriage, for living like a German and having a German man. At the age of 23, she was stopped at a bus station in Berlin and killed by 3 gunshots to the head. And the police arrested 3 of her brothers. Her murder inflamed a public debate over forced marriage in Muslim families in Germany. So that was my presentation. I want to thank you all for your attention and leave the word to my colleague Munis now. Thank you.
Thank you, Malak. My name is Munis. I'm a student at Istanbul University, Faculty of Law. Again, many thanks for all of you guys for this opportunity. Well, actually, I will be a bit mentioning about forced marriage for refugees in Turkey, Syrian refugees and in general. But why we are talking about the Syrians? Because they have the highest number, let's say, since the past 10 years. Also, in my presentation, the last part, I will be mentioning a bit about the cultural offenses. Next slide, please, Alma. Well, if we follow the news, we see that the Syrian brides take first place among foreign brides in Turkey. Syrian women experienced the highest marriage rates in 2016 in Turkey and still going up till now. When we compared with other foreign women, statistics realized by Turkish Statistical Institute showed the number of marriage and divorce decreased in 2016 from the previous year, while Syrian brides and still going on. Next slide, please. Syrian families in Turkey marrying off underage daughters for money. Amid coronavirus crisis, combiners wanted exclusive, sometimes to be a second or third wife of a man. This is to get rid of them, to have one less plate at the table, says Secretary General of ECBAT Turkey. Next slide, please. Well, the Syrian refugees' fears of abuse grow as Turkish men snap up wives. Another news, we see it. Increasing number of women who have fled conflict are opting to marry Turks, many as second, third, or even fourth wives. Well, actually, because they are kind of abusing those girls because they don't really have acknowledge about the rules. They are not in very good conditions, so they have no choice rather than saying, yes, we want that, we want to do that. The families that I mentioned in my previous slide, they don't mind that because they need just to have less responsibilities. They don't have a good income. They can't afford to that much members in the family. The next slide, please. And okay, here we see another article from Lebanon, from Beirut, mentioning about girls facing dangerous child marriage trend. Beirut, Lebanon, they are saying Syrian refugee girls are increasingly at risk of child marriage through sorg abandonment, legal lawlessness, and long-term displacement in countries across the Middle East, North Africa. So we see this is not just in Turkey, it's again in Lebanon, in other countries, in Europe, and like my colleague Merrick mentioned, it happened in Switzerland, in Germany. So it's kind of worldwide issue, not just in Turkey, but we're mentioning Turkey and Syria because they have the highest number for this issue. The other issue we see, which is the cultural offense. Now, as Turkey is when West meet East, so we have a lot of different cultures, especially with the immigration law. We're seeing different nationalities migrating to Turkey, moving to live here, bringing their families. So they basically coming with their culture as well to live here. So we need to make sure the acts they're having in their culture, kind of we control it inside of women, forced marriage, to make sure that this will not affect, because we already have these issues in Turkey. And when we have it now from different culture, people are coming here, then it will be worse and worse. So this is another issue. I see it for the upcoming years, as we're having a lot of, not just refugees, but we have a lot of nationalities moving to Turkey, coming here for living. So I would say this is an issue for the future as well. I think I finished my presentation now. Now turn for my colleague Sabiha for our solutions. Sabiha, here you go. Thank you, guys.
We have talked about some possible solutions as a team and came up with some articles that we made. Since I only have 2 minutes, I'll try to be real quick. So can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. Those solutions that we came up with are for honor killings. So we decided to have honor killing as a separate crime. And in this article, we numbered this as Article 90. If an act of intentional killing is committed with the idea of the victim bringing shame into the family because his or their acts have violated the local society norms and the hegemon customs and chastity norms, the offenders shall be sentenced to life imprisonment. Offenders, no victims, sex or gender is not relevant for this crime. Next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. If the victim is directed to suicide with the above-mentioned reasons, shall be sentenced to a penalty of imprisonment for a term of 10 to 15 years. If the act of killing or directing to suicide ends up in injury, not death, the offender shall be sentenced to a penalty of imprisonment for a term of 2 to 4 years. And Article 62, paragraph 2 and 3, and paragraphs 2 and 3, and Article 86, paragraph 2 and 3, I'm sorry, and Article 87 shall be applied. On criminal attempt, Article 35 of this code will be implemented as well. In cases of abetting, everyone who got included into the crime will be considered as a direct preparator and will be sentenced with the penalties that are above mentioned. This last paragraph is very important because everyone we don't really consider only the person who did the act of killing as the only preparator. If there is a family decision, if there is a support for that, Everyone who supports the act is a criminal. Next slide, please. And we have talked about the importance of education, and we wanted to add an article for National Education Basic Law Code. Every school connected to the Ministry of Education will give obligatory sex education and gender equality classes regularly. And the continuity and the effectiveness of the classes will be inspected every 3 months. And if it is understood that the schools do not take enough responsibility, the administration shall be penalized with a judicial fine. Next slide, please. Those solutions are for forced marriage. When an offender forces an adult into marriage, the offender shall be sentenced to a penalty of imprisonment for a term of 1 to 6 years. But if the victim is a minor, the term of imprisonment shall be from 2 years to 8 years. And if the offender uses force, the penalties imposed in accordance with paragraphs above shall be increased by half. Next slide, please. And in a case of forced marriage, where victim is under the influence of his legal guardian or any other person, against her, his or their will, forced to be a part of marital union, state will provide safe shelters for victim and give her, him, or them full protection. In this case, state will provide necessary education, safety, and financial support to a victim, and all that as a part of rehabilitation process for returning to normal life. Provide medical or any kind of necessary professional help. And if victims are minor, state will take care of victims' educational, medical needs until victim is 18 years old. So he or she or they can be able to provide the same things for him, herself, or themselves. Sorry, next slide, please.
Your time is up. Could you conclude your resolutions? Thank you.
Sure, thank you. So we wanted every school to have a consultant providing help for those children, and we under the Turkish Civil Code, we wanted to sorry, I got really excited when you said that. So one of the grounds of absolute nullity is forced marriage, and the article 146 will be implied of this code. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, each member of Team 1 for your presentation. Now I would like to give the floor to jury members to have their comment and their question to you.
Yes, thank you very much for this presentation. I would like to ask some details concerning your solution or your idea. What could be a effective way to repress kin-based gender violence? Actually, as far as I understand, your proposal is connecting to Turkey, yeah? Okay. And you would like to change the law and the criminal law as well, and also other legal fields, I mean, other acts in the field of educational law and civil law, yeah? Okay. So, because we have to evaluate also your solutions and your ideas, therefore my questions. The honor killing is right now, it's not a separate crime in the Turkish criminal code, yes? Okay, but the killing, intentional killing with, I don't know, with a biased motive or with a very uttermost motive is a crime, of course. Yes, okay. Then my next question is concerning the national education and basic law. The mandatory sex education is not part of the countrywide educational policy or something like this, yes? That is the base point. Okay, fine. Here, just a question. You can add something. If this solution will be a bill in Turkey, let's take it as an example. What is your idea? Who or what kind of organization or who will elaborate the program of such a mandatory sex education and gender equality classes? Or you would let it do for free? I mean, NGOs or just the schools should elaborate programs, or you would like to make a central program? So that is my concrete question. And then furthermore, concerning the forced marriage, it's also a new paragraph, yes? It would be a new inclusion in the Turkish penal code. For now, if there is a forced marriage, if there are some a criminal procedure because of committing a forced marriage, it will be treated as, I don't know, duress or something like so similar crime, not as a forced marriage, something which is more like familiar, not okay, I understand. And furthermore, Article 34 and 35, do you think really it should belong to the penal code? That, and the last question, whether this new article, Article 104/48 in the Turkish Civil Code, it's also a new one. There is no rules concerning nullification of the marriage until today? No? Not. Okay, just I'm asking because I don't know Turkish civil law. Okay, so please answer my concrete questions, and if you would like to add, you have the floor to add something.
I can say I'm gonna leave a word for my Turkish colleague to talk about Turkey, but I can say a few things about my country. As I said, I'm coming from Bosnia and Herzegovina. So in my country, we do not have classes we do not have any classes at all that are connected to education, sexual education. So it is we had a few cases where when you're in middle school, you have a one class that is connected and it's only for girls. So that is bad too. So you have one class or two classes about sexual education and it's only for girls. So that's bad, I think. So we should, of course, have sexual education in Bosnia and Herzegovina. There are many organizations that will do that for free. I'm 100% sure. There are organizations that are connected to that in Bosnia and Herzegovina. They just need an opportunity made by a government to acknowledge this problem, to educate minors as well, because I think that is a really good age for a good education connected to this subject. And that is about Bosnia and Herzegovina. We just need an opportunity. We just need articles. We just need a good articles that are going to connect that and are going to make an opportunity for those organizations that will 100% do it for free, I'm pretty sure. So it won't cost anything. We'll just have a good profit from it. Thank
you. For the articles 34 and 35, I think you are right that maybe we should have regulated them differently, not under the penal code. And for the sex education, how we will do that? Will there be organizations and NGOs, or we will leave them to schools? What was in our mind was a collaboration, actually. A collaboration of NGOs and the schools themselves, and to have a regular united program for each class, and so every teacher will follow the program. And also this idea of sex education is not only for forced marriages or honor killings, it's for everything that's been going on, and that the Istanbul Convention actually wants to solve. And the importance of educating the minors is very important. And I don't think just one party has the ability to create a lecture such as this one. So of course, it will be mostly up to the Ministry of Education, but we thought that it would be the best if NGOs and the schools and the teachers and the professionals would work together and create something very unique and informative. And if there were other questions, I can't recall them right now, but could you please repeat if there were any that we missed?
Just the backslash to the civil code regulation. Is it, as far as okay, if I read your solution, your proposal, I would think that such or similar rules are not yet included in the civil code, which means that nobody can attack or nobody can go to court to nullify the marriage. That is the case right now, according to the current law. Yeah.
So actually we have a similar regulation for that in the code, but it needs to have a under the influence of an enticement or under the influence of a threat. But sometimes those forced marriages don't happen to be like under those circumstances as the code follows. So we needed a separate article like this one.
And it's not absolute. We have a clause that you can challenge. You can go to court to go back to being single, but it's not absolute. If it's absolute, there is just an court hearing to make it pronounceable to everyone. So there is different terms. There are different terms in Turkish civil code.
Fine, thank you. I'm fine now. I would like to ask Mr. Dukovsky and Ms. Erbash, whether do you have questions or suggestions?
Thank you, Professor Korji. My question to Turkish citizens, because after Turkish criminal law reforms in 2000s, we have a big reform, as you know, and in this within this reform, we consider honor killing as an aggravating circumstance of a murder. So in Turkish law, killing someone by this motivation require more punishment. Still, do you think we need a separative crime definition, or by this definition or this requiring this motivation as aggravating circumstance is not enough?
Firstly, I think it's important.
I will answer it briefly because it was my topic. We need to think it must be a separate crime because honor killings are a much wider respect of the crimes, are much wider. There are much more differences between them, and the Court of Cassation also states that in their decision, because they say customary killings are the honor killings that cannot be benefit from the unjust provocation clause. So we are thinking no one should benefit from this unjust provocation clause if they kill their partners or their family members in the moment of rage, because they just cheated on them, because they didn't want to get married, or they just wanted to get divorced. So this is why we want to make it a separate crime.
I also want to add something. I think regulating a crime separately also shapes the society's mindset. So a separated crime such as honor killings will shape the society's mindset in a different way. Thank you, Vilga, for your reply as well. It was really good.
Okay, thank you. In this regard, my opinion, what is most important is interpretation of the crime definition. So in my opinion, from the deterrent effect, as you mentioned, of separate crime deterrent effect is much or less the same when we list them as a aggravating circumstance, or because both of them objective elements of crime in somehow. Therefore, yeah, this is my opinion, my view. And my second question, I enjoy your session a lot because we have had the opportunity to have an insight into different countries, Syria, and also Bosnia-Herzegovina and many others, Switzerland, Germany. And here, the core point, for example, we faces forced marriage even in Europe, but most of them immigrant stories behind that. For example, for Turkey example, we have a yes, we don't have a separate crime forced marriage, but it falls in a concrete case with the other crime type like sexual crimes or other crimes type that protect freedom of the movement or freedom of using rights. This kind of, we have other crime types. So in our situation, I wonder, for example, in Turkey we punish these people. We have this law system. Still we see this culture or we shouldn't name it as a culture, but we have this phenomenon, okay? But in Syria, for example, I wonder, in Syria now the law system punish them. I don't mean as a separate or within the law, considering the whole system. Syria or Bosnia-Herzegovina, for example, colleague said, there is no separate crime, it is not punished or this kind of thing, as far as I understood correctly. And if, for example, in Syria, is that punished or how is the legal situation? Because in many, yeah, it is a, for me, interesting point.
Well, in Syria, as I remember, it's inside the same article, so it doesn't define it as different kind of crime, just like Turkey here, absolutely the same.
Okay, so it is punished within the other crime types.
Exactly, it's not a specific type as itself, no.
Okay, thank you.
I wanted to add in Bosnia-Herzegovina too, we have family law, we have two types of law that are connected to the subject, but at the same time, we do not have anything specific for this subject. And it is kind of as I mentioned in my presentation, it's not a subject that it's talked about a lot because it's kind of still taboo here. It is delicate because of smaller communities and their rights. And this is a kind of culture of my country, because at the same time courts don't want to paint wrong minorities that in this example a Roman minority. It is like something that happens in their minority a lot, and we do not want to say like, oh, that's a bad thing, it's a kind of difficult to punish, but in our laws there is no such a thing as forced marriage. It is connected just to other cases, not exactly that.
Thank you so much for all your answers.
May I have a very short intervention?
Yeah. Yes, please.
Thank you. Thank you a lot for your presentation. I was really enjoying listening your arguments, and I was very impressed of your style of presentation with the typical introduction and how are you going to divide the issues that you're going to address. And I really enjoyed the comparative part of your presentation, just to see and to tackle some of the main problems within your jurisdiction. And I was wondering, when you were talking about forced marriages, there is no obligation for in any country for a marriage to be recognized if the spouses are not requesting recognition of that kind of marriage. And for example, in Germany, you need to have foreign marriage to be recognized just in order to have your tax purposes or to name change, also in Bosnia and Herzegovina or in any other country. How you will tackle the principle of consent as a part of transnational public policy and different cultural heritage of spouses. And having that in mind, do you have any recommendation for the possible interaction between the forced marriages and the family reunification. How you will go against family reunification in cases of foreign marriages. Thanks. And once again, congratulations on your presentation.
I will leave
Actually,
yeah, I wanted to say I will leave. This is not the biggest case in Bosnia and Herzegovina, but I'm pretty sure in Turkey it is, so I'm gonna leave the answer to my Turkish colleague.
Thank you. So in in the article that we came up with, it actually says that subsequent consent is not allowed. So if it is allowed in another country and a married couple will come, we will simply look at the social interference part of the international law. And in every case, the judge would decide whether it needs to have a public interference or not. But in the article, it is clear that a subsequent consent is not allowed.
And also, this is a topic we have talked about so much, and this is why the our presentation is comparative between the countries, because cultural relativism is really a big topic in based gender violence. And yes, you are right, consent and the family reunification is big obstacles around making a complete definition of the consent, but this is what Istanbul Convention also is trying to do, right? Because it forbids the crimes that are perpetrated in the name of religion or in the name of so-called honor. So maybe we have to be brave and make a general definition of the consent. And of course, like every other law topic, you have to find soft middle grounds between family reunification and the forced marriages. Because I also know a lot of people who are immigrants are getting married and they are taking money, so they give away their kind of citizenships by getting married. So I think this is a really important topic because of this. And countries need to regulate this more. This is also for the women's rights, not just because the countries are trying to stop this immigration that are coming from the East, but it's also important for the women's rights because they're getting forced married. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think we conclude the second team presentation. So I personally thank you all for the comments, questions, and answers.